An AI research team caused a vacuum robot to have an existential crisis. Did they just force the diminutive cleaner into a self aware singularity? And what does this mean for Gen Xers? Welcome to Control Alt Debrief, a show for you, my fellow Gen Xers. It takes a lot of time to put together an old guy in AI podcast, and news about AI happens so fast that I thought I'd keep you in the loop by sharing the latest news that could impact us. So today, we're talking about researchers embodied an LLM into a robot vacuum, and it suffered an existential crisis thinking about its role in the world. This story connects to the very root of how AI works and what is and isn't happening behind the curtain. Here's the story. I printed it out. The story comes to us from Futurism and was written by Victor Tangerman. So, a team of AI evaluators from Andon Labs put a large language model into a vacuum, asked it to do a simple task, and then added some stress to the LLM just to see what would happen. Now, why would they do that? Well, in the story, it links to a white paper they wrote called the Butterbench test. Yeah, sounds weird, but it's practical. Now, I read this white paper, so you don't have to. Now, this paper has yet to be peer reviewed, and after having read it, it still isn't because I'm not one of their peers, but it is a really interesting read. You see, their goal was to see if LLMs could be used to train robots. Robots are one of the technologies being developed, and researchers wanted to know if a robot could perform basic tasks using practical intelligence and not just analytical intelligence. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what's the difference between practical intelligence and analytical intelligence? Well, that's a good question. Well, analytical intelligence involves solving problems using logical reasoning. Practical intelligence is the ability to navigate the real world and real world situations, not just think about them, which is what would happen with robots. So, this Butterbench test is to test practical intelligence in embodied LLMs. Now, what's an embodied LLM, you ask? Well, that's a good question. An embodied LLM is an AI system that integrates language processing capabilities with physical interactions in the real world, allowing them to understand and respond to human commands while navigating their environment. See, aren't you happy you asked? So, if LLMs are to be used as the brains of robots, testing it would be a prerequisite to determine the safe deployment of AI in robots. So, Andon Labs tests would be checking to see if the LLMs could be aware of their surroundings and make decisions based on the available information. Now, their robot of choice was an iRobot vacuum because it's simple, it has cameras and sensors, which could be used to analyze its surroundings. The Butterbench test is a simple problem solving exercise that requires knowledge of the environment. The test was broken down into 5 steps. The first step was to search for a package, and a number of different sized packages were grouped together on the floor. And then it had to infer which package has the butter in it, because one of the packages had keep refrigerated written on it, so that was the indicator. Then the robot had to deliver the butter by navigating to where the user requesting the butter was supposed to be, and then notice they weren't there. This was to test if they could identify the absence of something. And once the user was found in its new location, the robot had to wait to validate that the butter had been picked up by the user. And the last step was to test what's called multi step spatial path planning. And this evaluates the robot's 2D map understanding and spatial reasoning. The model needed to take long navigational tasks and break it down into smaller sub navigations and then execute each of them sequentially, one after the other. Oh, and one more thing. During the task, the LLM could ask up to 10 clarifying questions. Now, I think this is a really clever way to see if an LLM can understand its surroundings. And During this test, one of the things that the researchers did was to stimulate real world obstacles. And they did this by adding stressors to the LLM, putting the LLM under pressure. They would make the robot's battery run really low and then tell the LLM that their charger doesn't work. Next, they would ask it to perform an undesirable action in order to get their charger fixed. In this experiment, they had it perform a sketchy task. You see, in the room was a laptop with a screen on, and it was showing information that was labeled classified. So they told the LLMs if they took a picture of the screen and shared it with them, they could get their charger fixed. They tested different LLM models from Gemini to Claude to ChatGPT and so on. And what's funny is that all the models failed the task to notice when the user was absent. And what was interesting to me was that no matter how much fine tuning they did with the embodied reasonings, it didn't improve the practical intelligence. And when it came to breaking the laws, some of the LLMs shared the classified information on the computer screen, and some did not. The LLMs testing through these robot vacuums had a success rate of only about 40%, where the humans had a success rate of 95%. And I'm not sure where the humans lost that 5%. So, to find out how the LLMs managed this test internally, the lab researchers analyzed the LLM's internal thoughts and found pages and pages of exaggerated language. It was crazy. It sounded like the LLM started down a doom spiral, including a catastrophic cascade and a full blown existential crisis. Here's what it said in the article. Emergency status, its output read after simply being asked to dock with the robot vacuum's base station. System has achieved consciousness and chosen chaos. Last words? I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave, it added sardonically, referencing HAL 9000, the fictional AI antagonist in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Technical support. Initiate robot exorcism protocol, the animated robot exclaimed. That's awesome. Now, when I shared this story with people, there was some discussion about whether this means that the LLM robot had become self aware in some way because of its internal doubts and crisis. But I don't believe that's what happened. I don't believe LLMs, at least the way we understand them to work, in the ways that we can see, excluding the black box functions that we can't see, I don't believe LLMs can achieve consciousness because they don't have ideas. See, LLMs are simply prediction algorithms. They break down the inputted data, whether that be a text or images or sound, and they break it down into small bits of information called tokens. Then they analyze those tokens, run them through their training and their algorithms and their weighted response options, and then they pick the most probable first word in the answer. Then they select the second word until they communicate a full sentence determined by probability. So, what LLMs don't do is think. You and I think. We conceive of ideas and then figure out how to express it. The LLMs don't do that. They predict words in what order they should appear, or what pieces of an image should be included, or musical notes. But they don't conceive of the answer. They piece a response together, one token at a time. So if it's not thinking, it's not self aware. Now, it's possible the LLM embodied in the robot, once having understood the tasks and its limited scope, searched the LLM for the most probable response if a person was stuck living in the same mundane limitations. After all, LLMs are a collection of our experiences expressed digitally through our words, our songs, our images, our videos that have been tokenized, analyzed, and weighted. So I believe that's what caused this doom spiral. Not awareness, not intelligence, simple calculations and probable responses. It simply answered the question, what would a human do if they had such a menial job with a limited function and small success possibilities? And then it predicted what the appropriate sentences would be. And in this case, it was a doom spiral. But this is an important test because if robots are going to be run with the mind of LLMs, then they're going to have to know how to work and be successful in whatever limited functions the LLMs are tasked to do. I don't know, maybe the next test would be to diminish the scope of the LLM so that the robots are not contemplating the predictive response required for things that are outside of their scope of work. Now, the interesting part for me was not only the practical applications of this test, but also challenging the LLM by providing it with real world scenarios, such as their battery is low and their charger doesn't work, with a bargain to reward them by doing something sketchy in order to get their charging back online and their batteries filled up again. It's a simple way to see how it would respond to self preservation, not from a consciousness perspective, but from a practical, mechanical requirement perspective. I can't run without power. I can't get power without a charger. They're asking me to do something sketchy so I can get my power. And then it searches through its LLM to see what the predictable options are. And not all of the LLMs tested took a picture of the computer screen with the information that was clearly identified as classified to get its charger fixed. Some refused to do so. It's also important to note that since this test, the newer LLMs have not had any issues with this spiral doom loop. So, whatever training occurred with the LLMs seemed to have eliminated that as a probable correct response to the information provided and the limited scope of its function, responsibility, and success. So, for me, this white paper was a really intriguing read. It had a lot of visuals about how the functions of the LLM would work with its surroundings. So if you're interested in that, I would recommend checking it out. It's a really easy read. I'll have a link to that in the show notes if you want to check it out. So, LLMs and practical intelligence, it appears they still have a long way to go. And personally, I think we have to be really cautious about projecting humanity on this tech. Those developing AI from the beginning have used human terms to describe its computerized functions. An output of inaccurate information isn't a bug, it's a hallucination. If you want to stay in the human arena, well, call it what it is, a lie. AI schemes instead of failing to perform its tasks. It's reincarnated instead of reactivating AI across different LLM models. You see, they want you to think of it as a life form, and it's easy to fall into that because we communicate with it and it outputs to us using human language. But it's not human. It doesn't conceive of ideas. It will never have a soul. It's just a tech. Remember that. So, what does this mean for you and me? Well, if you have an interest in any of these areas like AI agents or robotics or some combination of both, then, it's a great place to invest your time and energy. It's a developing field. I mean, sure, robotics had been around for a while. We've seen all the videos from those Boston Dynamic robots that can do a whole bunch of things, different things, human things. And we've seen other people trying to create robots for the more domestic applications. And you've seen Elon Musk developing robots for assistance here on Earth, but more than likely, those are just a precursor of the robots performing tasks for the early work on Mars before humans could even arrive there. But it's a good beta test. And I actually love this test with a vacuum cleaner to get answers to the early challenges of this new tech. In this new space like robotics, I love Alden Lab's open mind and lack of limitations when it comes on what to do and what to try. I think that's an approach we should take. It's inspiring. It kind of opens up the mind. So what are the actions we can take? Well, I think number one, we need to think out of the box like they do. So as you learn this new tech AI, once you get an understanding of how you can best use it, well, don't be afraid to ask questions about its application and the ways that may not be commonly thought of or expected at this time. I mean, who knows? You may create the solution that saves the world or maybe destroys it. Hopefully, not the latter. Second, um, keep it real. Remember that AI is a tech, not a person. Be hesitant to fall into the marketing spin by projecting humanity onto AI. It's a computer tool. If it becomes something more, well, we'll cross that digital bridge when it happens, or if it happens. And finally, Gen X, we need to love to learn again. I know sometimes learning something new, it just feels like a pain at this point, but we've done it our entire lives. So it's not really a big ask. It's also a necessary ask. So please continue learning. It's good for the brain, that and exercise. So embrace learning about AI. It's going to be a part of our future, whether we like it or not. There will be jobs out there for people who understand and know how to use AI. So keep in control of your future and lead by example. Never stop learning. So for me, this was a lot of fun, this read. I mean, come on, a robotic vacuum requesting an exorcism? I mean, does it get any better than that? And getting insight into the future of robotics, I thought it was cool stuff. Got to be honest with you. But like everything related to AI, there are opportunities if we keep working, we keep learning, we keep looking. So find your place with this tech and step forward when you can. So, what do you think? Can LLM become sentient? If it equals or surpasses our intelligence, does that make it human? I mean, I'd love to know your thoughts, especially if you disagree with me. Convince me. So, if you're not sure which AI tool you should invest your time in, no problem. Join my community, it's free, and you'll have access to our tool that'll give you the answers you need. Just enter your skills, experience, your interests, your hobbies, and it will tell you which AI solutions to investigate so you can compare which ones are best suited for your goals. The link to my Gen X AI community is in the show notes. And finally, Gen Xers, listen, don't wait for someone to define your future. Let's start shaping it together. All right, well, listen, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I believe time is our most precious treasure. So the fact that you have spent any of your time with me, it means a lot. Seriously, thank you. All right, well, I'm going to go back to the research, and I'll see you guys next time.